So, yeah, this is good. So this is Parenting with Life Coaching Concepts. And I know that there'll probably be more people. I'm just trying to figure out the Google Hangout thing. This is my second Google Hangout on air ever. We're doing another one next week too, looking at life coaching and the business side of life coaching. But I thought today I would look at the parenting side of it and just get into like a lot of some of the patterns I've seen in working as a life coach with families for a decade now, and I've got really good. I mean, that might seem like a weird word, but I've got used to seeing certain patterns in families I work with, and the teenagers and in the parents, and I just wanted to share like what some of those are, as well as some of the tools that I have found have made the biggest difference for parents over the past decade. I've been working with them. I know the parent-child-teen relationship is one of the most explosive relationships that we have as human beings. And as a life coach, sometimes I feel like I'm walking into this scene and I'm dealing with a lot from the very beginning. But these are the things that help the most. So I have some notes here. I just want to go over them, and then we'll open up for questions. And let's get started. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm John Andrew Williams. I started academic life coaching about 10 years ago. I was a former Latin teacher. I got trained as a life coach, and I currently have my own private practice. I have a client I have to run off to actually after this. And I also train other people to be academic life coaches as well. So here we go. First thing I found, the biggest difference is the one thing that I have found that parents and teenagers do not agree on is whose agenda is it? The central premise that I have found, and this is where life coaching comes in so handy, is understanding agenda. Agenda comes from a Latin word, agoagere, which literally means to do. And agenda is, get this, it's the future passive participle, literally meaning things that ought to be done. It doesn't say by who, but it just says these are things that we want to have happen. And so when you're thinking about an agenda, that is literally all it is things that we want to have happen. And as life coaches, we get really good at trying to figure out what that agenda is for ourselves, as well as what that agenda is for our clients. And I just was listening to a couple coach overviews today, and one of the biggest differences I heard in that coach overview, one of the biggest things I've heard in that coach overview was when a coach has an agenda for a client. It sounds like there are a lot of yes/no questions. It sounds like there are things that get in the way of the coach being completely open. And when things get in the way, coaches tend to revert to yes/no questions, leading questions, questions that have something sort of like an action step baked into them. And what essentially happens then is you're getting a coaching session that sounds a lot like a to-do list. Have you done your homework? Have you taken the SAT prep class? How much have you studied on that SAT prep class? What are you hoping that you can do in this next week? How will you make sure that you do that this next week? Like a lot of these questions sound like they're centered around the action of the student moving forward. This sounds a lot like parents after school. The two things that students tell me that their parents ask them all the time, the two biggest questions. I'm going to make a guess. Two biggest questions that parents ask students after school.
How was school?
Absolutely. How was school? General open-ended, beautiful question. And students generally say,
fine.
Fine. Absolutely. Next question.
Do you have homework?
Yes, sure, you do. Absolutely. Next question. Do you have any homework? And the student's response is usually,
No.
no, I don't have homework. When they do, they always have homework. It's a ridiculous question. It's so silly. But it's whose agenda is it? And that's this. It's at the crux of the parent-teen relationship. And so for parents to really understand, a life coaching skill, is understanding what is the agenda of the student. What agenda does the student have? On the deepest level, working with a lot of students, the agenda that students have is they want to feel accomplished. They want to feel like they have worth and they are capable of achieving the things that are set out in front of them. Fundamental level. So instead of asking questions, do you have homework? How is school? Asking questions about their ability, not in like a pedantic way, not in like, can you do your homework, like, these kind of questions, but just being aware that students really care a lot about their ability. As human beings, one of the things that we find most challenging or most stressful to us is when we know that the story that we're creating about ourselves, like, am I a good student? Am I a good football player? Am I a good violinist? Am I a good swimmer? Like, all these stories that we tell ourselves, when there's a chance that they might not be true, or they might be proven not to be correct, or there's like something that's threatening them, we shut down. And we shut down very, very quickly. And so students are constantly in this place where their idea, their self-concept, is constantly being tested. It is literally being tested on a weekly basis, maybe daily basis, by tests, quizzes, how they respond socially. Like, there are so many pressures that teens face. The number one thing that teenagers are trying to protect is that image that they have of themselves. So, parents who know this, parents who understand this, there's a different kind of sensitivity that parents can have. And parents can be really upfront. And the best parenting I've seen, or the parenting that I've seen be the most effective, and by effective I measure it in two ways. One are students who would say, yeah, my parents are awesome. My parents are totally supporting me. My parents are awesome. And two, students who know how to do hard work. Whether that's grades, whether that's writing a novel, whether that's being a student athlete, whatever it is. Those are the two criteria that I generally see. And it's hard sometimes because sometimes parents, they might do well, helping their child, supporting their child, but it's hard to instill in your child that sense of hard work if they haven't done it from an early age. So a lot of times with the teenagers I get, helping students understand that they can do hard work and they have the ability to stick with problems, to stick with math problems, whatever problems they face. That is a challenge. So what I found, so getting back to this, so wrapping up this point number one here, is that the biggest thing I've seen with parents, when they apply a life coaching skill, is understanding whose agenda are you working with. Are you working with your agenda as a parent so that you want your child to thrive and do well, or are you working on your student's agenda, which is really trying to figure out who am I and what challenges do I have in front of me? Can I meet those challenges? Questions, comments on this first point here?
I didn't quite get that.
I think I can get questions from viewers too. I'm going to try to figure this out. No, not yet. Not yet, Google+. We'll get there. We'll get there, Google Hangout. I think that first one's a little abstract. I don't want it to be too abstract. So I'm thinking of so what it could look like, or what this looks like. How do I say this? What this looks like practically speaking, I think, is speaking directly to the issue at hand and asking students questions like, what would make doing your homework really easy? I know that the challenge, the challenge of homework isn't necessarily, the worksheet itself or doing the worksheet. Doing each individual worksheet may not be a challenge, but doing something, but keeping up the repetition of it, doing it week after week after week, that can sometimes really be a challenge. What can help you meet this challenge? Because here's the deal with this. Here's the deal with, when you're working with people's idea of who they are and self-concept. A lot of times, parents will come to students and they will say, writing something in your planner is super easy. Doing well in school is really easy. Why can't you do this? It's so easy to do this homework. It's so easy to get an A. If only you did your homework, if only you studied, if only this. And so what happens is the students get this idea that there's this really easy task that my parents want me to do, but I'm not capable of doing it. And so oftentimes students will totally shut down. This is the #1 pattern that I see that stops parents and teens from being on the same playing field. So instead, parents can say, yeah, the individual assignment might not be that challenging, but the repetition of it, keeping up on everything, and keeping up on everything over a span of 9 or 10 months, that is a huge challenge. So parents can actually, it's actually useful for parents to play up the challenge that their student faces. So many times I see parents play down the challenge that the students face, in the sense that parents say, it should be easy for you to do your planner. It should be easy for you to do your homework. All you have to do is go talk to your teacher. Students don't need to hear that. They need to hear, this is a challenge, and you have the skill set to meet this challenge. If you do this, then students will, their agenda, creating their self-identity and testing their self-identity and being successful with that identity will still be intact. It's amazing. It's like a magic trick. And it's a really simple, it's a complex concept, but it has a really simple outcome, and that students feel more safe. They feel safe because the narrative that they have about themselves, it's no longer going to be tested. Now I'm spending a lot of time on this point, but I believe it's the single biggest thing that I see, and it's a challenging point, and I'm really excited to be able to elucidate this a little bit because it is one of those things that it's sort of counterintuitive, that it's beneficial to tell someone that, oh, this is going to be a challenge, when there's a lot of popular thinking, and there's a lot of thinking that, oh, we want to say that things are going to be easy. We want to say that this is going to be an easy thing to do because then if it's easy, we'll just approach it and it'll be a piece of cake, right? It should be easy. But a lot of the research shows that it's more motivating in the long run, and people have more persistence in the long run if they think the task that they are up to is difficult. People will persist about 33% more or something like this. It is significant. And this is a challenge that I see happen to students a lot. And it happens because of the situation that they're in. There, Kathy.
What do you do when the parent's agenda is for the child to make an A or a B, but the child's agenda is to just pass the course? How do you approach that?
It goes back to, this is it is this issue. Because the students, oftentimes, the concept I've seen in sports psychology, or in this kind of thing, is called self-handicapping. Mm-hmm. And so this is that concept at play. So essentially, what this parent is thinking is, oh, it's easy for my child to get an A or B. Like, that is a piece of cake. they just have to do the homework, they have to talk to the teacher, piece of cake, right? And then my child should get an A or B because that's the narrative I have of myself. I am a successful parent if my child gets good grades.
Mm-hmm.
Also, that's the path. What the child is thinking is, I don't really want to try.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I try and fail, I will feel really bad about myself. But if I don't try, then I could get an A or B, but I'm just not trying, so it's cool. I'm cool. I'm just not going to try to get an A or B. And so then all of a sudden there's this rift between parent and student because the students think, even if I try and fail, I don't want to be a failure. I don't want to try and be a failure. I'd rather just not try, and of course I'm going to fail, but it's it's mentally and emotionally easier to go that route. That is this concept. That is exactly this concept at play. So how you address it, practically speaking, is you speak to it. And you tell the students, yeah, it's a challenge. It's going to be a challenge to do that. And I believe that you're capable of doing that. And here are some tools to help support you on the process. It's a much different conversation from what I usually see, where parents get frustrated because they think, you have so much potential. If only you did this, it would be so easy for you to get this A. It would be easy for you to do this. And it just spins that cycle even harder and causes a rift between parents and students when, in my experience, parents and students, they really do want the same thing. They want the students to thrive, get good grades, be happy, and go off to a good school or take some pathway that they feel fulfilled and it's going to lead to some economically viable station in life. I can see your wheels turning, Kathy. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm working with one student now who has, I would say, very low interest in the subject that he's having problems with,
Mm-hmm.
and tried to, get to the bottom of this and make it more fun. And he seems to enjoy our sessions a lot. It's just the subject, and he just seems like he wishes that he could just like wake up and it would be over with. And I'm trying to make it as painless as possible, and express confidence in his abilities. And with this, I'm doing really well with the other clients, and this particular student, he isn't interested in the subject.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems that he's not really motivated. It's hard to gauge how hard is he really trying. He has ADD, but I suspect he has some other learning issues which have not been addressed, but they have not been diagnosed.
Mm-hmm.
I've used lots of different strategies and in methodologies and motivational strategies with him, and we're not gaining a lot of traction, you could say, right now.
Yeah, I hear that. That leads to the second tool that I use, and this is the core motivation tool. That is so there are a couple different typing systems that I use in the academic life coaching program. My favorite is the core motivation. It's derived from the Enneagram.
Mm-hmm.
And what I love about the tool is that it helps parents and students understand that their core motivations are different.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm working with a client. In fact, the client I'm going to have to take off here in about 20 minutes to go see. I'm working with a client who I know is probably a 3 or a performer in the core motivation scale. He is motivated to do well when he thinks that he can succeed or be the best at a subject.
Mm-hmm.
If he does not think he can be the best or succeed in a subject,
Mm-hmm.
he literally has no motivation. It drives his parents absolutely bonkers. It's like it's it's infuriating for them because they see how well he could be doing, but then all of a sudden he just doesn't perform. So what you do is, hey Adam, how's it going?
Hello, John.
So what you do with this, so what you have, the opportunity that you have in putting, in working with someone's core motivation like this, is you can speak directly to it. You call out the elephant in the room. And when there's that much self-awareness, when students have a tremendous level of insight into themselves, then they can say, yeah, that's why I'm not motivated. And things shift. But what I see happen a lot of times is that we try using a lot of different motivation strategies like conditional versus intrinsic, motivation away from versus towards, where you get people motivated for the sake of self versus for the sake of other. Like there are a lot of motivational strategies that we can use, and they're fantastic. What I found is that when you really speak to the core of what people are motivated with, and you're honest about it, then students will begin to shift. So a lot of it is just being really clear about, yeah, I know you're not interested in this at all, and let's take a look at this from the point of view perspective of your personality and the core motivation of your personality. That I find, that's basically what I'm planning on doing this evening as I go off to work with this client. And then we see where the pieces fall, and we see what he talks about. And he's probably going to balk a little bit and say, yeah, of course, this is what I want to do, but I'm still not interested in doing my math because I don't think I can be the best at doing my math. That leads to the second sort of typing system that I love, which is the what, why, how. And so, or the academic thinking styles. And that, this is especially true for homeschoolers or people who are, in small classrooms, or if you have a teacher who is in a different subject. That students like what they understand. We as human beings, if it's understandable, we like it. So many times students don't like a subject because they feel like they cannot understand that subject. Or they've got feedback from that subject that they're not good at it. And it can be really psychologically, mentally, emotionally challenging to do something that you are not good at. I know. I'm trying to put on a Google Hangout, and it's so hard to set these things up. And it takes so much effort. It's psychological prowess to keep on, like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to try to set up this Hangout. It's going to happen, right? So the same thing happens with students, is they get in a class, and they think, I don't think I can be successful in chemistry. I don't care about chemistry. I'll never need to use chemistry again. I don't want chemistry. And if their core motivation style doesn't, matches up to what they don't want to do it, if they don't think they can succeed in it, it's a train wreck. Bring in the academic thinking styles. Each of us has a different way of thinking, or a style of thinking. And there are certain people who want to know details, like names, dates, definitions. Other people, their thinking style goes, they want to know reasons why things work. And then another thinking style is how. What are the steps? How do I do it? How does it work? So generally speaking, people have all three of those thinking styles, but they generally lean towards one of those just because it's an effective and efficient way of thinking about a subject. When you help a student understand their own thinking style, and then you also help students understand the thinking style that they're asked to do, it gives them something else to become interested in the subject. So in this case, the subject becomes a playground for them to develop a deeper understanding of themselves versus becoming interested in the subject itself because they're going to have to go out and be a chemist. So once you bring in this element of, hey, I know you don't care about chemistry. Okay, I understand this. And look at this way of thinking. Look at this way of thinking academically. What if we apply this to chemistry? What happens? And so many times students get excited about that because they think to themselves, great, I'll just do it. As an experiment, I'll do it for 2 weeks and see what happens. That's a really common outcome when I work with students, and all of a sudden, my hope is they have this eureka moment, this huge insight. When they have a huge insight into this is who I am, this is my thinking style, this is the thinking style that I'm being asked to do in school, usually there's a path forward in terms of actions that they can take. I'm hoping that a theme emerges out of this. And the theme that I'm really, as a parent, I have my own children, as a parent, what I am constantly tuned into is the story that my daughters are making up about themselves. I really ask myself the question, what things are they thinking about themselves? What story, if they had to tell a story, this is who I am, what would they say? Like, that's a really important question, and so that leads to my third point here, is in parenting is levels. It's levels of listening. This is like life coaching 101. Levels of listening, and it goes a little deeper than that in the sense of I'm not just listening to like the words that my children are using. But it's also listening to like the actions that they're taking, and it's listening from a deeper level of asking myself the question, what is it like to be, my daughter? What would it be like if I were my daughter? What story would I say about my life right now? And sometimes I will ask myself that question, and sometimes if I don't know, I will simply ask the question. Well, I'm asking the question from such a deep, empathetic curiosity that they feel that question. And they feel that question coming from such a deep, open, curious way, and it really ties into, you have to understand, children, this is the question that they're asking themselves. Who am I and how do I fit into the world? As adults, we still ask ourselves these questions, but as kids, we have a better idea of ourselves, right? And, as we get older, we're like, okay, like I am this, I am not that, But for little ones, it's wide open. They haven't yet narrowed down the focus. So that narrative, what they talk about, that narrative is paramount. And that's that. So that's the third sort of the life coaching concept is use empathetic listening to become curious about the narrative your child is saying. You tie all these together. Whose agenda is it? What style of core motivation and thinking style do they have? And then you, with curiosity about their narrative that they have about themselves, I have found these to be the three most useful life coaching tools in parents who use these tools. And notice I haven't talked about motivation styles. I haven't talked about, like, is it better to enforce homework or not homework? I have a couple of clear answers about that too. And I have like three little bonus things. I have three little bonus things I've seen. But these are the biggest, the deepest, biggest things I've seen. Now for the three little bonus things, I'll open up for Q&A. Bonus thing number one, question I get a lot is it better for me as a parent to enforce study time, homework time, this kind of thing, or is it better for me to not enforce that but let it be, for my child? Is it better for my child to try out for themselves and fail? My answer is that it absolutely enforce homework time and study time if they are younger than 10th grade. 10th grade seems to be a magic cutoff point, a couple years after puberty. I don't know why, but being a middle school and high school Latin teacher, I've seen it so many times. The habits that young people have in middle school and the first years in high school will be the habits that they take with them throughout the end of high school and into their college. Seen it so much. When they get into the latter half of high school and college, it's a lot harder for them to change their habits. It's possible, but it's a lot harder to do. So as a parent, if they're young, absolutely enforce it. Be the enforcer. Go for it. If they're older, you can't really be the enforcer that much, but yeah, you gotta. They're gonna have to fail and pick themselves up out of it or something, at some point. So for all of those out there who have children younger than 10th grade, you've got some time. Use it. Do your work. Other thing I've seen, I can tell when I'm working with a family that I know it's going to be awesome, is when the mom and the dad, or the two partners, are on the same page. If they're on the same page, beautiful. Like, it is a beautiful, wonderful thing. So if parents are out there and they're thinking, oh, like, I'll be the good cop, you be the bad cop kind of thing, you both have to be on the same page. Both be bad cop or both be good cop. Or at least figure out, what page you're at, what standard you're at. So many times I've seen parents say, we agree on the principles, but we don't agree on the method. We don't agree on the method of, how we use this. So, that's not good enough. The parents need to go step aside and really have an understanding, a deep understanding of, this is what goes in our family. We have the same, agenda that we want, and we have the same method that we want. And then the third thing I've seen is literally hard manual labor. Like, students I work with whose parents are cool about hard manual labor, it's awesome. Like, those are the students who I know are going to work hard, they'll be engaged in school, and it is absolutely fantastic. I was working in Southern Oregon with a family, and these are students who play a ton of video games. Video games that they literally measured how often they played by the number of days spent playing these video games. Days. And a day is 24 hours. So throughout the course of an academic year, these guys are spending like weeks of their life playing a video game over the course of an academic year. It boggles my mind to the point where I literally think he goes home, and from 3 o'clock to 3 o'clock, 12 hours, he's playing that video game. It's addictive as anything. The parents did not know what to do. He was super tired in school. He was just making it by terrible grades. Spent a summer picking pears in orchards in Southern Oregon, and it was like this miraculous transformation come junior year. Because they were really freaked out, because I told them about the thing about sophomore, junior year. They were totally freaked out. I said, what do we do? I said, hard manual labor. Work on a farm. They worked on a farm, and it was beautiful. So those are 3 little tidbits. 3 main big concepts, 3 little tidbits. I'm only maybe 7 minutes behind schedule, but that's not too bad because we started all day. Questions. And I have to run here in about 8 minutes to go see a client. I'll hop in the car, drive across the town. And if you're viewing, I think there's a way for you to ask a question. If you just want to email me, I wonder if I can get like an email address shown up there. It's just John, John, at academiclifecoaching.com. If you have no questions, that's cool. I like a good Q&A.
I have one more question.
Go ahead, Kathy.
With this one particular student that I mentioned before, if I try to find out what his agenda is, and he's very honest with me, and he says, I just want to pass with a D, and points out to me, I'm being successful in my, executing my agenda because I have a D, and that's what I want to do. Doesn't match what the parents want to do. How can I change his perspective on this, or can I?
Yeah, the first thing, well, maybe not. So you might not be able to change his perspective. You just got to square with that. Like, there's a chance that whatever you do, you might not be able to change this person's perspective on that. And that's okay. That's totally cool. So let's say if a student comes to me and says, I want to get a D in this class, I barely want to pass. My first response is, that is totally awesome. Let's go get that D. That is so rad. Like, what's the best part of getting that D? Let's go for it, you know? And the student will say, man, it's great. I can chill. I have a student like this. I can chill. The weather's beautiful. I don't have to do my work. I have an excuse. My parents are divorced. They're moving houses. You know, my stuff's scattered in 4 different houses right now. Both my parents are moving at the same time. Like, this is a real life student. You know, his family life is absolutely in shambles, and he has a perfect excuse, and he's totally into it. Go with it. Absolutely, 100%. Embrace him. Go with it. There's something beautiful about getting a D and just barely passing. That's his agenda. And I did. I went with it. And so what happens when you do that is you create so much safety. You create, because there's no longer this thing where you're on that side and he's on this side. You both are on the same page. You literally went on his page. And if you stay there for a while with curiosity, with the student, so I stayed over there with curiosity. What came out of it is he is freaked out of his mind. He is so afraid of trying and failing, because he already failed out of one. He already failed out of one school last year, and now he's going to a different school this year. He is so afraid of actually trying that he doesn't really want to try. He doesn't want to set his sights up any higher than just passing, because if he doesn't, then he'll feel even worse about himself than he already does in all of the challenges that he has. And so what generally happens is, after you've had this, once you've gone with the student so far and really accept them and who they are, something beautiful comes out of it. Some beautiful insight. A student has some realization because you've created safety in that conversation. And sometimes it lasts even longer than a conversation. I sometimes get in trouble as a coach because parents will say, "You said what? You said it's okay for my child to get a D? Are you crazy? You know, what are you doing? Like, that's not okay. Like, we didn't pay you so that my child can get a D." I've gotten this question before, and this is where I have to tell parents, like, look, like, what's the pattern that's happening right now is not really working. But if we accept a D and we see what's, for at least, a couple weeks, accept that, then there's an opportunity to move forward. There's an opportunity for growth. There's an opportunity for something new. But the first step is really accepting the agenda of the student as this is the agenda that we're going to go with. Students want to thrive. I'm sure if you asked him, what is it you really want? You got that nitty gritty. He would not say, I want a D. He would say, I want to get the best grade I can. I know that. I've seen it so many times. The students are literally afraid of being successful if they think that they might fail. Cool. How we doing?
Sure.
Very good. That's great advice. Good advice. Thank you.
It's fun. I see a lot. I just see a lot of different parenting styles.
Yeah.
The biggest, like I said, the biggest things are if the mom and dad are on the same page,
Yeah.
not just in this is what we want, but we're on the same page with, and this is the strategy that we're going to use. That's key. Absolutely key. All right. I've got to run. I've got a client I got to get to. It's been a pleasure. This is my second one. I think I got enough emails out there, enough ahead of time. I knew there were about 20 people who said they were going to join. I think we got up to 9 or 10. That's awesome. But thanks, everyone. Thanks for hopping on. And I I think I'm going to do another one next week. I might move it back to 2 weeks. But I want to try doing these things at least once a month, maybe more.
Good job. Thanks, John. Good seeing you.
Yeah.
Thanks, John.
Yes, it's a good one. Ciao, ciao.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.